What is the very first thing a younger man's brain registers when he sees an attractive woman? Go ahead, take a guess. I can almost guarantee you're wrong. We're programmed to say it's her smile, her eyes, or her figure. But what if I told you that those are just the conscious details his mind logs after the real moment of attraction has already happened? According to the legendary psychologist Carl Jung, the true answer is something far more ancient, primal, and unconscious. Before he even notices her smile, a deeper part of his psyche has already been sparked by a force he doesn't understand. Today, we're not just talking about attraction, we're talking about archetypes. To truly grasp this concept, we need to step into the mind of the man who conceived it, Carl Jung. He wasn't just a psychologist, he was a pioneer who dared to map the deepest, darkest, and most magnificent territories of the human psyche. While Freud focused heavily on repressed personal trauma and sexuality as the primary drivers of the unconscious, Jung proposed something far more vast and collective. He envisioned the human psyche as a multi-layered entity. At the surface, you have the conscious ego, the I, that you identify with, your thoughts, feelings, and memories that you're aware of. But beneath that, like the immense hidden bulk of an iceberg, lies the unconscious. And this unconscious wasn't, for Jung, just a dumping ground for forgotten personal memories. He believed its deepest layer was impersonal, universal, and shared by all of humanity. He called this the collective unconscious, a reservoir of our shared human experience across millennia, containing innate potentials for understanding the world that we are all born with. These innate potentials, these universal psychic patterns, are what Jung termed archetypes. Think of them not as detailed images, but as fundamental blueprints, as ingrained tendencies to experience things in certain ways. They are the underlying patterns for concepts like the hero, the sage, the mother, and the trickster, figures that appear in the myths, stories, and religions of every culture on Earth because they are baked into the very operating system of humanity itself. They are the psychic instincts that shape how we perceive reality and, most importantly for our topic, how we relate to one another. Within this framework of archetypes, Jung identified one that is absolutely central to a man's psychological makeup and his experience of attraction, the anima. The anima is, in essence, a man's inner image of woman. It is crucial to understand that the anima is not a real, external person. She is an internal, psychological fact. She is a complex and compelling composite, an archetypal image formed from three primary sources. The first and most profound source is the collective unconscious itself, the ancient, inherited blueprint of the feminine that encompasses all the myriad forms we see in mythology, from the nurturing and life-giving mother goddess to the seductive and unpredictable enchantress. The second source is a man's personal experience with the feminine in his early life, most notably his mother. This personal relationship paints the universal archetype with specific colors, setting initial expectations, biases, and emotional tones for how he will relate to women later on. The third source is his own unconscious feminine qualities, those aspects of his personality that a patriarchal society might deem unmanly, such as intuition, emotionality, receptivity, and the capacity for deep connection. Because these traits are often suppressed in the process of becoming a man, they are relegated to the unconscious and become woven into the fabric of the anima. Therefore, the anima becomes far more than a simple idea of a dream woman. She is his soul image, the psychic representative of his capacity for relatedness, for eros, for meaning, and for connection to the deeper layers of his own being. She is the mediator between his conscious ego and the vast, unknown world within. When a young man feels a profound longing or a sense of incompleteness, it is often his unconscious anima calling him toward growth, urging him to integrate these hidden aspects of himself to become a more whole and complete individual. But this is an internal process. and it sets the stage for what happens when he looks outward into the world. 1. The core argument, the anima projection. This profound internal architecture of the anima is not meant to remain a hidden, theoretical concept. It is designed to project itself out into the world, and this is the very mechanism that explains the initial spark of attraction. So, when a younger man locks eyes with an attractive woman across a room, the first thing he notices, on an unconscious level, is not the complex, autonomous human being standing before him. Instead, what registers in the deepest part of his psyche is the sudden and startling recognition of his own internal anima reflected back at him. This is the phenomenon of projection. It is an instantaneous, involuntary psychological trigger where his unconscious mind casts this inner image of the feminine out onto a suitable external figure. It is less about seeing her for who she is and more about perceiving her as a living embodiment of a fragment of his own soul. This is why the feeling can be so overpowering and feel so fated. It carries the weight of a profound internal truth suddenly appearing in the external world. He is drawn to her like a magnet not because of a logical assessment of compatibility, but because on a soul level she feels inexplicably familiar. It's a resonance, a sense of knowing that bypasses all conscious thought and rational analysis. This moment of projection is the bedrock of infatuation, that powerful feeling of being completely captivated by someone you don't truly know yet. You are, in a very real sense, falling in love with a part of yourself that you see reflected in them. This process of projection is a universal human experience, but its intensity and its nature are particularly potent and problematic for younger men. The primary reason for this is that a younger man's psyche is often less integrated. His conscious ego is still forming its identity, and his connection to his unconscious is more a relationship of being controlled by it rather than consciously collaborating with it. His anima, therefore, is not a known quantity to him. She remains a powerful, autonomous, and uncontrolled force within. Because he lacks awareness of this inner feminine dimension, he has no choice but to project it outward onto the world. It's an unconscious attempt to make contact with this lost part of himself, but he misinterprets the source, believing the completion he seeks lies in another person. Furthermore, the content of a younger man's anima projection is often highly idealized and one-dimensional. It tends to be shaped by cultural fantasies, archetypal images from media, and the unresolved complexities of his early relationship with his mother. She is not a whole, flawed human being in his psyche. She is the perfect mother who will provide unconditional nurture, the captivating seductress who will validate his masculinity, or the ethereal muse who will inspire his greatness and give his life meaning. He isn't consciously looking for a partner in the true sense of the word. He is seeking a salve for his own unconscious sense of lack, an archetype to make him feel whole. This is why youthful relationships can be so passionately intense yet so fragile. The connection is built on the shaky foundation of a projection, and when the real, multifaceted woman inevitably fails to conform to the idealized archetype he has superimposed upon her, the projection can collapse, leading to disillusionment, conflict, and the feeling that she changed or was not who he thought she was. For this magical and bewildering transfer of inner image to outer world to occur, there must be a bridge. The projection of the anima does not happen onto just anyone. It requires a hook in reality, something in the external woman that provides a plausible landing strip for this internal content. This bridge is a specific feature, a quality, or an energy that resonates perfectly with a facet of the man's internal anima image. It could be something as tangible as the particular shade of her hair, the shape of her eyes, or the sound of her laughter that echoes some half-remembered ideal. Very often, however, the bridge is far more subtle and energetic. It can be a certain grace in her movement, a specific look of knowingness or compassion in her eyes, a tone of voice that feels soothingly familiar, or even an intangible presence or energy she radiates that speaks directly to his unconscious. This resonant feature acts as the catalyst, the key that unlocks the floodgate of projection. It is the doorway through which the archetype enters his perception. This explains why attraction can feel so specific and yet so inexplicable, why one person can trigger an overwhelming response while another, who might be objectively similar, does nothing. The physical feature itself is neutral. It is the unconscious, symbolic meaning he assigns to it that holds the power. The Anima uses this bridge to make her appearance in his world, convincing him utterly that he has found something external, when in reality, he has encountered a profound and ancient part of himself looking back at him. 2. Implications and modern application. This entire process of projection, while a natural and powerful part of the human experience, contains within it a significant problem and a profound opportunity. The problem is a painful but inevitable truth. Projection is not love. It is a powerful illusion, a fantasy that feels like love because it is so intensely captivating. The relationship begins under a kind of enchantment, where both parties are, to some extent, unknowing participants in a psychological drama written by the man's unconscious. However, this spell is not permanent. Life has a way of asserting reality. Through time, proximity, and the inevitable challenges of a shared life, the projection will inevitably begin to fade. The idealized image superimposed upon the woman starts to crack and peel away, revealing the authentic, complex, and wonderfully imperfect human being who was there all along. This is the critical juncture where many relationships, particularly those formed in youth, fracture. The man may feel a deep sense of betrayal or disillusionment, often accompanied by the accusatory cry, "You've changed." But the truth is, she hasn't changed. The illusion has simply dissolved. The woman, on the other hand, may feel confused and resentful, realizing she was loved not for who she truly is, but for an idea she never agreed to represent. This collapse, however painful, is not a failure but a necessary and potentially transformative crisis. It marks the end of an illusion and the possible beginning of real relating. The goal, as Jung framed it in his concept of individuation, is to gradually withdraw these projections and to integrate their contents. This means a man must undertake the difficult inner work of recognizing that the goddess, the muse, and the source of his longing reside within him. He must come to know his own anima, to make her a conscious part of his personality, thereby reclaiming the power, creativity, and emotional depth he had been seeking externally. This integration is what allows him to finally step into a relationship not from a place of need and fantasy, but from a place of wholeness, where he can see and appreciate a partner as a separate, autonomous individual, flaws and all. Understanding this dynamic provides practical wisdom that can be applied by everyone. For men, the advice is to cultivate awareness of this internal mechanism. The feeling of powerful attraction should not be a signal to immediately pursue, but rather a signal to pause and look inward. It is an invitation to ask the most important question: am I attracted to her, or to the fantasy I have already placed upon her? This moment of introspection is a powerful tool for self-discovery. Each time he feels that magnetic pull, he can use it as a mirror to understand his own inner world. What does this specific attraction say about the current state of his anima? Is he seeking nurture, inspiration, or validation? By questioning the source of his attraction, he begins the process of withdrawing the projection before it can cloud his judgment, allowing him to approach relationships with more clarity and authenticity. For women, the insight is to recognize that you may often be the recipient of these projections. It is a common experience to feel placed upon a pedestal only to later be knocked off of it for failing to live up to an impossible standard. The most empowering response to this is not to shape yourself to fit a man's fantasy, but to firmly and unapologetically stand in your authentic self. Your authenticity is your greatest strength because it is the one thing that can never be truly captured by a projection. By being wholly yourself, you naturally challenge the fantasy. You force a choice. Either the man begins to see and engage with the real you, initiating the possibility of a genuine connection, or the projection shatters against the rock of your reality, revealing his inability to relate to a true partner. This discernment protects your own energy and ensures you are valued for the complex, complete person you are. So, what begins as a simple glance, a moment of attraction across a room, reveals itself to be something far deeper and more meaningful. The first thing a younger man notices in an attractive woman is, in a very real sense, a reflection of his own soul. This journey into Jungian psychology shows us that the initial spark of attraction is less about truly seeing another person and more about glimpsing a lost or unknown part of ourselves that we yearn to connect with. It is a powerful, primal call from the unconscious, designed not merely to lead us to a partner, but to guide us toward greater self-awareness and wholeness. The infatuation, the idealism, and even the eventual disillusionment are all part of a sacred curriculum meant to teach us about the projections we place upon the world and the inner work required to reclaim them. Ultimately, this understanding transforms attraction from a force of confusion into a profound tool for individuation, a call to embark on the most important relationship we will ever have, the relationship with ourselves. We've covered a lot of ground, and these ideas can be challenging to sit with. What do you think? Does this perspective resonate with your own experiences, whether you're seeing it from the side of projecting or receiving a projection? I would genuinely love to hear your thoughts and continue this conversation, so please share them in the comments below. This kind of self-discovery is a journey we can take together. If you want to understand more about how your unconscious mind secretly drives your decisions, your relationships, and your life, be sure to show your support. Liking the video helps others find this content, subscribing builds our community of curious minds, and hitting the bell notification ensures you don't miss our next dive into the depths of Jungian psychology. There is so much more to explore. Thank you for watching.